Lindsay Hendricks here at Green Bay Botanical Garden. Today we are in the cottage garden, and one of the things that you can start working on at home that we're starting here at the garden a little bit is pruning roses. So now is a good time to do it if they're starting to bud out. We do have a little bit cooler weather coming this week, but you know, they're already starting to grow. They are a perennial, so they should be able to handle a little bit of cool this week. Even the new growth that's coming out, you know, unless it's a really cold frost, should be okay. So I like to get ahead of it because by the time, you know, frost is done, there's so many other things going on to keep you busy. So when you're pruning your roses, you can kind of see this one here. I did half of it, so you can see what the result is, and then this other half that hasn't been touched, so you can kind of see the before. So when you're pruning your roses, you basically want to cut out anything that had died over the winter and then prune to an outward facing bud, because this is going to give you a nice form of rose and get all the junk out of the middle so it looks nice and pretty when it's blooming. So you want to make sure you have a nice pruners that's going to make a nice clean cut, so make sure you sharpen it before using it. And basically, you know, you just kind of start going. So like I said, you want to cut out anything that's dead or has died over the winter. So on roses, it usually turns a really dark brown color, sometimes even gets a little bit black. So you want to cut back to an area of the rose that's still alive where buds are breaking like this. These are the little buds. So that's how you can tell where your rose is alive to. And we say to prune to an outward facing bud because especially when you have hybrid tea, grandiflora, the really fancy roses, you want to make sure you have really good air circulation so you don't get disease or pest problems. So an outward facing bud are the ones that point outward, because if you cut to right here, the bud below it is what's going to break, and that's going to grow a new branch out this way. So you can kind of control the growth of your roses by selecting which buds you prune to. So here I'm just kind of cutting back everything that's dead, and you can see here if I would cut back to this first bud that's growing, this branch is going to come right into the center of this rose. So I'm going to actually cut back to a bud below it right here, and then this branch is going to grow outward, so it's not going to congest the tree, and it will still have nice good air circulation in there. So it's pretty simple. If you really like tedious work, pruning roses is probably a really good thing to do, but you know, it's quiet time alone with your thoughts and getting to hear the birds and sounds of your garden. So this here is a shrub rose, Carefree Beauty to be specific. These don't require mulch or winter protection, so they're really great if you like roses but you don't like all the maintenance. The roses in the formal garden, the hybrid teas, grandifloras, floribundas, those require winter protection and a little bit more work. So, you know, if you do not like all the work that goes into roses, I would stick with the shrub rose here. And these are pretty disease resistant too, and not as susceptible to a lot of the insects and diseases that roses get, like powdery mildew and black spot and whatnot. So anyways, you can kind of see then when you're done, you have this nice open looking shrub rose, and you want to make sure you also pick out any leaves and debris that might have collected in the crown of the rose throughout the winter. That'll keep it growing healthy as well. And then you're pretty much set to go for the the summer. So that's one of the things we're starting to work on here at the Botanical Garden. You can do it at home if you have roses. If you happen to cover them for the winter, make sure you uncover them so they can start growing. And these next couple weeks, hopefully it'll stay nice and warm and stuff will really start growing. Hey, hello, we're back in the cottage garden today. I'm going to show you a couple things that have started coming out of the ground and blooming since last week with that warm spell that we had and a little bit of rain. Stuff is really starting to grow now. So things are starting to grow, but you know, it's going to be a little cooler this week yet, which is okay because that means a lot of our spring blooming bulbs and even some of our trees that are starting, they'll hold their bloom for a lot longer than they would otherwise if it gets really, really warm. So cool is a good thing. It's just like the florist fridge where they keep the cut flowers, you know, it just kind of holds them in bloom for a little bit longer. So some cool things I got going on in here. Last year I planted a lot of cool, really unique bulbs in the cottage, so you'll have to stay tuned for when they start blooming. But This guy really shot out of the ground since last week. This is called a Persian Lily or Fritillaria persicaria. It actually has black flowers on it, like a really dark purpley black color. And these tulips that I planted around are called Green Star, and they're a green flowered tulip. So when these are blooming at the same time, you're going to see kind of like a really cool contrast between the green and the black flowers. Really unique color combination. So you have to stay tuned for when those start blooming. Sorry, you got some walkie-talkie chatter in the background distracting me for a second. Another cool little guy that I planted a couple years ago, this Cheritomba split cup daffodil, has a really unique cup on it that's kind of split and ruffled. So that's a cool little guy that just opened up this last week here. And I'm starting to get some of our ornaments out in the cottage garden today. We've got a lot of stuff going on this week. So this is the bee skip where the bees back in the olden days would kind of hang out. There's a little woven structure that goes underneath there. I need to get out of the shop yet, but so that's hanging out. We've got, you know, our daffodils are really going to town this week. A lot of our tulips are still kind of not there yet, but some of the earlier ones are starting to open up, so stay tuned for when those start opening up. But I put up my birdhouses last week, and I noticed this morning that my little friendly wrens are moving in, so that's exciting. They're someone to talk to, and I'm working out here all by myself, and you know, they're pretty good company and fill me in on all the gossip that's going on in the garden. And if you kind of look out this way, you can see some of our magnolias are starting to open up. Some of our earlier ones, that big white one is Ballerina. And you can see next to it, we have some cherry trees that are starting to open up. So that's new since last week. And like I said, the cooler temps will just kind of let them bloom a little bit longer so we can enjoy their prettiness a little bit longer than we would if it stayed really, really warm. So a lot of our crab apples will be opening up within the next few weeks. Those are a little bit later, some of our later blooming magnolias. So stay tuned, we'll keep you up to date on those. Another cool little guy that is opened up this week are these checkered lilies or snakehead fritillarias, a lot of different common names, but you can see this one right here. They're called checkered lilies because their petals kind of look like they have a little checkerboard pattern on them. So those are really cool and unique. I like those here in the cottage garden. There's even a white version of it on some of them that come in. So those have opened up this week. And I've also noticed when I was kind of looking around in the dirt to see what seedlings are coming up, that we have a couple lettuces that are coming up, and those had reseeded themselves from last year. I let a lot of the lettuces in the cottage go to seed just so the kids can see what the lettuce looks like when it flowers, and that's where lettuce seed come from, and that's, you know, where lettuce comes from, not just the grocery store. So even though it's a little cooler, you know, you can see some of the stuff is starting to grow on its own. So if you want to start getting out and planting some of your earlier crops like lettuce, carrots, beets, you know, you're probably okay to do that. If it's too cold for them to come up, they won't start growing yet. So, and I also noticed in here I got a lot of different little seedlings coming up of stuff that I'm gonna have to get a jump on thinning out. This guy right here is teeny tiny, but I know that's the kiss me over the garden gate. That gets to be pretty obnoxious and jungly if you let every seedling come up. So in a couple weeks when they get a little bit bigger, I'll have to start thinning those guys out. But so stuff is just starting to come into, you know, spring bloom these next couple of weeks. So a lot of daffodils and early stuff, but stuff is really going to start coming these next couple of weeks. So we'll make sure we keep you up to date on all, you know, pictures, social media, videos, you know, so even though you're not here to enjoy it in the gardens, you can enjoy it from afar and safe and socially distanced. So, and we're hoping that we'll get to open up soon so you guys can all come in and enjoy it in person. So that's it for today. We'll make sure to keep you in the loop on everything fun and exciting here at the garden, and we'll see you again soon.